As always, links to help Palestinian families are down in the description. Please check them out if you have extra funds. Hello everyone! It's been a really long time since we've seen each other, I know. Unfortunately, that's just kind of what happens when the state of the world goes to absolute shit and you lose all of your motivation and confidence for literally no reason whatsoever. But more than anything, I was determined to get this video out, and so here it is. As you can see, I have updated my setup and made new sprites. Not only did I design a new jacket for my Sona, but I was so intellectually stimulated this past semester that I had to make some sprites with a lab coat as well. I also got a new jersey that I'm in love with, so I had to make sprites for that too. And now we are starting off strong with that lore video that I've been promising you guys for like almost a year now. This video is going to help me organize my thoughts and ensure that my audience and I are on the same page. My confidence in this video is admittedly a little shaky, but if international bestseller Quan Mills can write such inspiring hits as "This hoe got roaches in her crib," "Pregnant by my demonic rose toy from hell," and "Sleeping..." Oh god, I had almost said that with a straight face. "And sleeping with my baby mama's baby daddy," then I think I can muster up the courage to put this video out on the platform. We have a lot to discuss, so let's jump right into it. Our story takes place on a fictional island kingdom called Aseristan. The king and queen of this island, Sultan and Regina, ruled for a little while, and then they had 2 twin children. Very soon after the kids were born, like before they even hit the 6-month mark, both royals vanished into the night, just like that. There was not a single trace of their whereabouts after months of searching, and so 5 years later when the story is taking place, the 2 are presumed dead. You can come up with your own theories on what might have happened to them, but that's never going to be revealed to the characters during the story's events. So now let's go over the main characters and their traits. First things first, we have Prince Brainsworth. He is a sword fighter and parkourist and can also handle himself in hand-to-hand combat. I like to think that this gives him a very playful fighting style, very much like the Powerpuff Girls. Lots of backflips and bouncing off of surfaces, stuff like that. Personality-wise, he is mischievous, rambunctious, he has a tendency to talk back to adults, is not really the brightest bulb, but is otherwise a very sweet, loyal, and protective kid. Writing Prince can be a bit of a tightrope walk because he's like a kid with no filter, and he can be kind of sassy, but I never want him to come off as too mean or bratty without at least giving him a good reason to do so. And unless I have a really funny joke or it's not going to affect the plot, I don't want him to come off as like a dumbass. Most of the time when he's being obtuse, you can at least understand his line of thinking to an extent, or he's just using little kid logic. Because when he actually does use his brain, he does pretty well. For instance, he does just fine in school 9 times out of 10, you know, with all those sight words that he has to memorize, and he's really good at coming up with strategies in battles, so, you know, that counts for something. Let's get into his athletic abilities. Little bro is freakishly strong. He's able to carry an adult without much struggle. I imagine that he can comfortably lift about 200 pounds, give or take. He can go a little bit higher, but that's when he starts to strain, you know what I mean? I feel like his absolute max running speed is about 25 miles per hour, which I believe is around Usain Bolt's running speed, but again, that really tires him out. He can probably comfortably run at like 15, but that is like sprinting. He can't just do that in the house, or the castle, whatever. I gotta give his butler a fighting chance of catching him when he's trying to get him ready for bed, you know what I mean? He's also very flexible. In his free time, you will catch him practicing calisthenics and gymnastics. Now where he really shines is his parkour. It's like his sword skills are fantastic, but his choreography is really what brings it all together, you know what I mean? I just wish I could draw that, but you know, what can you do? Like, obviously he knows the basics of sword fighting, but I feel like if he was ever forced to like stay on the ground in a fight, he wouldn't be as much of a powerhouse. He'd just be good, you know? The kid is a show-off. He has to go big or go home. And he doesn't have to be home until the streetlights come on, so obviously he's gonna go with the former option. Other things that he's into, he likes frogs, video games. He actually really likes reading, even though he can't do it himself yet on account of being a kindergartner. Actually, I have a backwards AU for these characters in which everyone's personality is flipped, and if Prince were to be the genius instead of his sister, he would be a literary genius instead of a scientific genius, and his sister would practice martial arts, but rather than doing insane parkour, would be more intentional with how she practices her craft, and would be a very good defensive fighter rather than offensive. Speaking of whom, his younger twin sister, Dr. Princess Rainsworth, is a chemist, biologist, and engineer. I imagine she's got some knowledge in many other fields of science, of course, but those three are her main focus. Because as much as she'd like to, unfortunately she doesn't know everything. For example, even though she has 3 PhDs, none of those are in medicine. She's not a physician and cannot treat a broken bone, for example. She knows how to do it on a technical level, but if she were to attempt it, she wouldn't do it correctly. Another kind of limit that I put on her intelligence is that she's not very good at articulating herself, which means that this poor child cannot write a lab report or proposal or anything of that nature, so she often has to present her work to the university so that they can patent and publish her work for her. Personality-wise, she can also be a bit mischievous, but she's more good-natured than her brother. She's playful, absent-minded, and can get kind of fussy and can be a bit of a crybaby. Now, even though Princess is very brilliant, she doesn't explicitly treat people like they're less than for not knowing as much as she does.
Okay, but if I go back to being smart, Lisa, you're getting the whole package, i.e. unabashed superiority and zero tolerance for ignorances. Say hello to Todd. He's fluent in over 600 languages. Oh, and he destroys anything inferior to him. Perhaps if you valued your education, you could build something with more pizzazz. Say hello to Mr. Reinforced Titanium Alloy Arms. Sorry, I forgot he has jolly-seeking lasers.
She knows that science isn't for everyone, but she's very passionate about her craft and loves to share her knowledge with others, especially her brother. But at the same time, she also kind of does. Like, it's very implicit, but like, if she thinks that it's harmless and for the advancement of knowledge, she would, for example, sequence someone's DNA without their consent. And she wouldn't fully understand why that's bad. Like, yeah, she would be like, oh, I guess I should have gotten their permission, but she wouldn't really understand why she needs their permission. Do you know what I mean? We talked about this in my genetics class. DNA can have very personal information hidden in it, like someone's family history. Like one time I saw a Reddit story of a guy who was meeting his girlfriend's family and he accidentally revealed that one of her parents had cheated because their blood type was inconsistent with her siblings' blood types. And that wasn't the guy's fault. He had no way of knowing that it would blow up like that, but you see my point, right? Consent is very important in STEM, but in her mind, if it's for the greater good, then why shouldn't she? Luckily, since her work is sponsored by the university, obviously most of her experiments and stuff are being looked at by a professional, but in case I ever want to push it, the key word here is most, because some of her experiments are just for fun, and they don't have to know about that. Now, of course, they could be innocent, or if I need it for the plot. Last year, I animated her to the song Not Evil from the Lego Movie. See, the song works because Princess definitely has the potential to be evil, you know, with her knowledge, temper, and the fact that she needs to take an ethics course, but I swear to you she's not. She just wants to build cool gadgets and play with her brother and butler. I swear to you she would never hurt a soul. On purpose. And if it wasn't deserved. Anyway, I was supposed to be talking about things that she's into. She likes playing dress-up and having tea parties. I like to think that she has an interest in fairies in particular. Like, she knows that they aren't real, but she is desperately holding on to the possibility that they could be. And this is probably because I tried to add them to this universe, and I decided that they didn't fit, so I ultimately ended up kicking them out. So this poor child is just getting gaslit by the world building. Honestly, if she was a little bit crazier, she would go around shrinking people and surgically attaching butterfly wings to them. Now, she would never do that, but she has considered it more than once. Actually, that would have been a fire ending to the 2 kids in a killer fic that I wrote like a year ago. Okay, so if you haven't read that fic, it's on AO3, but basically what happens is that the children interrupt a murder trial, and the killer ends up escaping, so they have to go catch him. So they do that, and honestly, I think that Prince should have given the guy more of an ass whooping. I think I held back a little bit in that department. But anyway, there's a part towards the end where Prince punches the guy in the face and knocks him unconscious. So what if, after that, the kids drag him back to the castle and leave him in the laboratory overnight, and then the next morning, he wakes up and is obviously very aggressive and attempts to escape and or grab servants' attention, but the kids manage to subdue him before their butler notices what's happening. Then they shrink him down, and Princess bioengineers synthetic wings to his spine, and then they just release this guy into the wild. And hey, villain origin story. He can show up again, why not? Is that too fucked up? I mean, the guy killed 3 people and he was gonna go to prison anyway. I mean, I guess the prison system isn't all that bad around here. It's better than the US prison system. Unless, of course, we bring back the death penalty. I totally could. I mean, it doesn't go against what the modern government was founded on. Should a young child know that even if a man murders a family, it's not technically justification to perform an extremely risky and unethical experiment on him just to fulfill your own whimsical desires? And on a completely unrelated note, should a 21-year-old woman also know that? Maybe down below in the comments we can discuss the ethics of turning a serial killer into a fairy for shits and giggles. Just to not even keep him around, like, just to release him into the woods, like, that's the... Anyway, I should mention that the 2 kids genuinely look up to each other. Princess, while she does get annoyed by her brother constantly showing off, is always blown away by his athletic abilities and even uses her knowledge of anatomy and physics to help him choreograph his moves. She's seen how hard he trains to be able to do all that stuff, and she really wishes she had it in her to do that too. And Prince, even though he hasn't got a clue what she's talking about 90% of the time, loves to help his sister in the laboratory and is genuinely fascinated by most of her work. Like, he doesn't care much for the calculations and the equations and all that jazz, but he is always fully engaged to see her apply that stuff in order to build cool gadgets. It blows him away every time. He does not understand how she does it. It's like magic. Alright, last of the main cast. Servant Tilstein is the kid's butler, who you guys are deeply infatuated with for whatever reason. He is this stoic and gentle guy and is just so exhausted from single parenting these 2 energetic kindergartners. He dropped out of college after his first year because it really wasn't working out for him, and then he became a butler for the king and queen. And then when they disappeared, he was thrust into being a parent, something that he doesn't believe that he's very good at. The kids adore him so much, and he adores them back, but he's been kind of viewing himself as like a temporary solution, and he feels like the kids deserved much better than him anyway. And here's the thing, he doesn't really start out as a great parent. He's very permissive for a while at the start. Like what people who are against gentle parenting think that gentle parenting is. He's very emotionally supportive, but he kind of lets the kids get away with being literal menaces to society, and he just kind of gives them like a slap on the wrist for it. They're also very spoiled because he tells himself that he's their butler, and he acts like their butler, and that's what happens when you tend to a child's every need and whim. Let's just consider ourselves lucky that the kids happen to be very sweet and don't mean any harm, or else they would be way worse. Thankfully, as the story goes along, he's kind of like, okay, these kids need guidance, and they see me as their father. If I don't help them grow, nobody else will, and they deserve someone who will help them to be the best versions of themselves. He starts to establish expectations and teach them independence, which in turn makes them misbehave a lot less. He even starts to give them small responsibilities like cleaning up after themselves and stuff, which they are really not a fan of, but he gets them to do it. This is what gentle parenting actually is, by the way. But overall, start to finish, his relationship with them is very cute. He's also not quite sure of what kind of career he wants to pursue. He ended up dropping out of college because nothing was really sparking his interest, so now he kind of feels like he's stuck in limbo at an age where most people are, building their futures and stuff. Like, the guy likes cleaning, but he knows he doesn't want to be a butler forever, which makes him feel bad at the start because, he doesn't want to leave the kids. But he doesn't know what he'd do with himself if he were to quit. So, until he unlocks what he's passionate about, he's staying right here. Servant is such a fun character to write for several reasons, but my favorite is that because he's very stoic, I can give him the most random-ass headcanons. For example, he won homecoming and prom king all 4 years of high school. He just has 6 crowns sitting in his childhood bedroom collecting dust. He never ran for homecoming or prom king, so he has no idea why he was on the ballot or why people were voting for him. For that matter, he probably wasn't even at all 6 of these events. People probably delivered his crown to him the next day at school, and he was just kind of like, oh. The guy was weirdly popular, considering that he wasn't all that close to anyone in particular. As a matter of fact, I like to think that he was a part of the popular girls clique of all people, because that's just so fucking funny to me. He's cute and he's quiet, so they made him follow them around everywhere, and he just went with it. A direct contrast to my experience because I was cute and quiet but not popular, but then again he does have a penis. I also like to headcanon that he's physically incapable of mishearing song lyrics. Like, the guy doesn't even sing, so he just flatly repeats them back to you. I also like making him a Disney princess, and before you ask if he were to be one, he'd be Snow White. I mean, I didn't watch the Disney movie, I just know the story, so that's based on vibes more than anything else. Also, I'll tell you who his Prince Charming is in a moment. He likes bugs for some reason, he especially did when he was younger. He understands why people don't like them, and he doesn't want them in his living space, obviously, he's a very clean person. But he's the kind of guy to just pick them up with his bare hands, which the children find disgusting, and rightfully so. Oh yeah, and because he's 6'4" and has a resting bitch face, he kind of accidentally comes off as intimidating, especially when he's mad, which is hilarious because it's guys, this man has a heart of gold, he's not gonna hurt anyone. I mean, I really want him to kill someone, but I don't know how I'm going to put him in that situation, so let's not worry about that for now. Now we're moving on to the side characters. Next up, we have Servant's parents, Maiden and Planter Tilstein. If you couldn't tell by their names, both of them are farmers. They live in a rural community on a small plot of land where they raise chickens and grow crops. The two of them are deeply unserious, in direct contrast with their son's stoic nature. I mean, Servant is also unserious, but he's got a very dry sense of humor, so that's not something that's immediately obvious. Now, if you're following my sketch account, which you should be, you know that he was born that way, and I don't think that his parents ever fully understood him. They adored him very much, of course, that's their only child, and of course he loves them too, but I imagine that Servant doesn't really like to talk to them about certain things because of that. Now, if you've seen some of the comics on my sketch account, you may have noticed that when Servant was 4, his parents were in fact expecting another child. You may also have noticed that Servant is an only child. Yeah, unfortunately, Mrs. Tilstein had a very terrible experience with the delivery of her second child, and the baby didn't make it. Servant was always freakishly stoic as a kid, but I do imagine that he was openly very excited to have a younger sibling. Now, luckily for him, this wasn't really his trauma. He was a little bit too young to really remember how bad it was. It's his parents, especially Mrs. Tilstein. Servant mostly remembers that when he was a toddler, his mom was bedridden and would cry all the time. Planter and Maiden are both estranged from their family, so they really only had each other to lean on during this time. It was difficult, and it probably did put a strain on their marriage for a while there, but they didn't want to be sad forever, and they knew for sure that they didn't want to separate, and they still had a kid to raise, you know? Obviously, it took a little while for them to process the pain, but eventually things did return to normal and Servant was able to have a pretty stable childhood. But I find it interesting that the most somber time of his life is when he was the age that the kids are now. I swear I didn't do that on purpose, but it's a neat little parallel. Alright, next up is Chief Executive Officer of the Royal Council, Mr. Percival.
I fear this man doesn't have a first name. Just call him Percival or Mr. P. It's perfectly fine.
I'm going to be showing a drawing of him that my friend Perlon Pix drew because he does him far more justice than I can. I'm being so deadass, I use his drawings for a reference instead of my own. Anyway, Bro self-assigned himself as the kids' mentor, so they'll be ready to take the throne when they come of age. He really looked up to the kids' parents and desperately wants the kids to live up to their legacy. But Prince and Princess are babies. They don't understand shit about AP government, which is what he's trying to teach them. Bro is a huge overachiever and thinks that the kids just aren't taking this job as seriously as they should be. This is Bro's first time interacting with a kindergartner, by the way. Although in his defense, the kids are kind of extraordinary, so it makes sense why he thinks they should be able to understand this stuff, but it's not like they can read or write. Okay, well, Princess can read, but she can't write. Anyway, the best part about Bro's character is that he and Servant have some 1.5-sided beef going on. Probably because historically, farmers and politicians have never really gotten along. Servant, who is normally so calm and patient, loses his absolute shit over this one specific guy, and Percival kinda has a crush on him, and is just intentionally pissing him off for the love of the game. By the way, I swear to God that first part was a joke. I like to think that Servant is strangely captivated by Percival in a way that is entirely subconscious. Servant is a shy, down-to-earth college dropout with no clue on where his future is going. Percival, on the other hand, is a well-spoken, educated theater kid who's probably way too confident in his own abilities. Those traits seem to enthrall each other, but whereas Servant cannot stand this guy, he seems to find those traits in Servant cute, but in a way that's kind of condescending. I should be clear about that. Now, one thing about me is that I really like main characters, so stories tend to be laser focused on our main 3, but lately I've been thinking that maybe I should branch out and give the tertiary cast more attention, you know? The kids' kindergarten class, for instance. There's only 4 of them: Star, Monet, Broker, and Tycoon. I do have a little short in mind of the kids sneaking their classmates out when the substitute teacher is a little bit late to school, and I should really release it now that I think about it. I don't know why I'm gatekeeping it. Now, if you guys haven't caught on to the naming system by now, yeah, everybody has a name that relates to a profession.
Nicole is my middle name. My first name is Doctor.
Sometimes I kind of play around with it a little bit. Like I have an NPC called Escort. She's a security guard by day and does other things at night, if you catch my drift. In the Two Kids and a Killer story, the bad guy's name is Maverick because, evidently, that name means daredevil. Even though I made him change it to assassin, which was really unnecessary. Why would I do that? Okay, whatever. You can see that there's a method to my madness, so I must have had a good reason. The names don't even have to be in English either. The kid's teacher's name is Mentora, and she's Latina. As you can see, I have a handful of Hispanic characters because, I only know Spanish, but, if you guys know other languages and want to suggest names, I'll take them. The last names in this world are some word that relates to their profession, combined with, an actual surname. So, you have Till, that's this thing, and then Steen or Stein. So you put those together and you get Tilstein, which I've been told is a really good last name, and it does roll off the tongue pretty well. Rain, that is in fact what royals do. And then you have Worth. A lot of fancy last names end in Worth, so that gives you Rainsworth. With Percival, you have Percy, Civil, and you get Percival, which is apparently a real name in the real world, which I was not aware of this. I've never heard anyone with that name until after I did that, so that's unfortunate. But anyway, my absolute favorite NPC in this world is this guy Sue, spelled like this. His last name is Shefferson. So he's now legally obligated to show up all the time because that's the best name out of everyone. World building is my second favorite part of any story, the first part being the characters, but I don't know if I'm all that good at it. I did kind of cook with the naming system back there, so maybe I should be giving myself a little bit more credit. But anyway, as I've mentioned before, the kids live on a semi-fantastical island called Aseristan. Not enough to have dragons and fairies and stuff. And by the way, I did try to add them, but I don't feel like they quite fit the setting. But they still do have some interesting creatures and plants living around there. You guys remember Sue Shefferson from earlier? Yeah, they got their arm taken by this giant centipede thing, which I think I'm gonna call a kilopede, which wasn't great for them, but Princess will build him a prosthetic arm, so don't worry too much about him.
So I planned for this part of the video to be recorded on my phone camera, so don't worry about that. My phone is about to die, so let's make this quick. So one of the creatures that I guess would be a quote-unquote main focus, question mark, I don't have a name for it, but it is this reptilian creature. It lives in water, and it occasionally ventures to the woods and or maybe the town. Maybe. I don't know why it would be all the way out in the town, but whatever, it's a fantasy story, that's a thing that happens. Before I show you guys, I actually am quite proud of the design, but don't make fun of me. I don't draw animals normally, so just... Anyway, so this is, I suppose, what we're working with. I'm going to explain it more later in the video, but this creature grabs people and or animals and just gnaws at them, Its head and jaw are like a snapping turtle, and then its body is like a monitor lizard. Let me get a little closer. This is the best my iPhone 13 can do for you guys. Anyway, so as you can see, it has blood around its jaw. I was debating back and forth whether it just has dark red markings around the jaw or whether that's actual dried blood. I think I'm going to go with it being actual dried blood. It's just always covered in, its mouth area just always has redness around it. I think that'd be pretty creepy. I've been told that I'm incapable of making anything remotely disturbing. I'm just cursed to make cute things forever, so that's awful. But what can I do? The eyes and I think face shape are Maz from Splatoon, because that was the original inspiration for this creature. I just thought it would be nice to have a creature that just pops out and grabs you with its jaw. And then it gives off toxic black saliva. I think I explained that later in the video. It has this dorsal fin because why not? This is the thing that makes it a bit of a challenge. Its scales are similar to medieval chainmail, so it's very hard to fight this thing with a sword. So that'll be just fun for Prince to deal with. And there's 5 of these things out in the wild, so that's at least 5 different encounters. I might have more because I don't know if he defeats all of them on the first try. And then on top of that, it's got pretty thick skin, so his work is cut out for him. Its face would also have the chainmail scales. Maybe it would have thinner skin near its face, but yeah, its face also has the chainmail scales. I just didn't draw it because it didn't look quite right. I do want to make the thing rounder. I feel like this one looks too skinny and it's too reptilian-like, which I know I used reptiles to make it, but I don't want it to look as reptilian as it does. And then here is probably what its actual body shape would be. And this is Servant for scale. Note that Servant is 6'4", so this thing is 7 feet tall when it's standing on its hind legs. I suppose it does crawl most of the time, like a crocodile or something. But yeah, when it's standing up, it's very tall. It's terrifying. Hi, so it's the next day. I completely forgot to mention that I feel like this design is a little bit barren. And I meant to say yesterday that I don't know what to add to its head to make it look a little more interesting. I don't know if I should do that or do this. Or I could do both. So y'all let me know about that because yeah, I don't know. I don't know which one looks better. I don't really know how I imagine this creature in my head because I don't really do that. But yeah, you guys let me know. I'm not just creating creatures, I'm creating new plants because why not? So this plant, I wanted it to have pink leaves just because I think that looks really nice. So I looked up what would cause a plant in the real world to have pink leaves. And Google told me that if a plant has pink leaves, it's trying to protect itself from UV light. So I decided to make this plant like, and then I looked up what kind of trees are, can withstand like extreme heat. And the one I ended up picking was this one. So it's a birch tree, so it's got like peeling bark or whatever. They resist high acidity and high heat. So that's nice. If you come over here, those are just images. I decided to make its leaf shaped like a sun, sort of. I guess you wouldn't be able to see it unless you can see like the veins. I don't know what those thingies on leaves are called. I took biology 106 like 3 years ago, guys. Don't come at me. But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what the fucking leaf vein things are called. But I guess you wouldn't be able to see that it's a sun unless I draw that, which I probably won't. But yeah, the leaf is sort of modeled after a sun. And then the tree itself kind of looks like fire. Like it kind of looks like a flame. Not entirely because that's not really how I draw fire. But vaguely. So that's cute. And then I just made it sparkly because I thought that would look nice. So yeah, I don't know what to call these plants either. I don't know what to name anything. But if you guys have any suggestions, again, just let me know. I just wanted to make like an aquatic mouse because why not? I think mice are cute from a distance. So anyway, it's got like weird shaped ears. The interesting thing about this mouse is that its tail functions similar to a flagella. Flagella is like the thing on like sperm or bacteria that like rotates and allows it to swim. And the flagella attaches to the organism like this. By the way, I had to memorize all that. But anyway, so it's basically the same thing. The tail just kind of rotates here. Maybe I'll have more fins on the tail itself. I think this thing would live in like freshwater or something, or maybe like lakes and stuff. I think mice don't really like swimming, so it's a fun little thing. I just wanted a creature with a flagella-like thing. That's all.
So all that to say, we have this fantasy world in an alternate universe, but what's strange to me is that despite this, they still live in a universe where the rest of the Earth is the same. See, in the beta version of the story, which I developed when I was 13 years old, which for anybody who needs the clarification was 8 years ago, there was an episode where the kids fly out to New York City for some meeting about like climate change or some shit, because I figured that's what world leaders would do, travel to one of the biggest cities in the world and talk about climate change. I was super into Home Alone 2 at the time, so that's kind of why New York City was chosen of all places. But anyway, to me, that meant that in this world, America existed, and real-world issues existed, and therefore real-world history existed. I do like media where a few specific things about the setting are made up, and the rest isn't. For instance, let's take The Loud House. The show takes place in Royal Woods, which is a fictional city, but Royal Woods is located in Michigan, which is a non-fictional state. In a similar vein, long ago, a Saristan got itself involved in World War I, was ultimately screwed over in the end, and from then on decided not to involve themselves with other countries ever again. And they've been better off for it. Now, even though the Earth and certain historical events were very similar to our world, I should say that the story always took place in an alternate universe. I'm saying this because I had a joke where the US president was called Peter Otis, and the kids think that his name is strange, so they call him POTUS. Like the acronym POTUS. See what I did there? That was a really funny joke, and now I'm not gonna get to tell it. Not to mention the fact that I have to cut out the story where the kids drop him out of a 2-story window into a hot tub after convincing the Secret Service to take a 5-minute break, which leads the kids to getting incarcerated. And I had a scene in mind where the cops point their guns at 2 black kindergartners in front of their dad. So that's just wonderful. And the story ends with them staging an assassination attempt, which they then counter, so the state decides to let them off with a warning on the condition that they don't come back. So that's super fun, but even so, I just realized recently that I really don't want to contort real-world events to this silly little story about found family and being hardened by adulthood, when I could just as easily make shit up and it would be so much more fun and enjoyable for me. Especially with everything going up in flames right now, in real life. Even though I'm changing things, most of a Sarastan's history will remain the same. There's a war, a Sarastan fights on the side they believe to be correct, they aren't given reparations, and they decide to sever themselves from those other kingdoms. Maybe a Sarastan is a really tiny kingdom that nobody really takes seriously. I don't know, leave me alone. Also, I have a funny feeling that the other kingdoms don't know that a Sarastan's rulers have been AFK for half a decade. Technically, they have a royal council that's been running things, but they're not really aware that there hasn't been a figurehead for like forever. And if that's the case, then a Sarastan is lying to them by omission. They just conveniently never bring it up whenever they happen to have meetings or whatever. The topic just conveniently never comes up, and no one in the Royal Council thinks it's necessary to mention, so they just don't, and the other kingdoms just don't care enough to, figure that out. As for why a Saristan would lie about something like that, I mean, haven't you ever felt petty and just decided to leave out very, very important information just for the hell of it? Like, you gain nothing from doing so, you probably have a lot to lose by doing so, and you just do it anyway, just out of spite. But anyway, maybe it's so that they don't feel vulnerable. I mean, their population is down by 2, and they still don't know what exactly happened to them, so, no one needs to know. Anyway, I like to think that in the 20th century, after the war ended, the king at the time, his name is Monarch, stepped down as ruler and his queen stepped up, and established a royal council so that the monarchy could be more in touch with the people and what they wanted. Which is why if you look at the map here, there's 2 castles, the old one and the new one. The new one, which is obviously the one that the kids live in, is much closer to the town. Okay, so that's the version of the story that most people are taught as kids, and it's the version that I taught you guys, and is very likely the version that the average person knows unless they, take an AP class or learn about it in college. So, it's not exactly a secret, the information's there, but you kind of have to go out of your way to find out what really happened. And I mean, I don't think it's necessarily hidden. I think if you search up that incident, it's gonna tell you the gory details. But anyway, see, I like to think that the public was actually quite angry with the king for taking them to war in the first place. It was an executive order that he made without consulting anyone, not even his wife. It ended badly for them. They lost so much, and he never owned up to it, even though he knows that he fucked up. So rather than peacefully stepping down, his wife, her sister, and the public stage a grisly execution for him and rebuild the government from there. I imagine the queen did not want anything to do with other kingdoms after they did her people so dirty, and severely limited contact with them. Although I do think that things have become a little bit more lax in recent years, and that's obviously because I've been toying with the idea of maybe having them interact with these other kingdoms. Since I can't do my story about the kids throwing POTUS from a 2-story window into a hot tub, I'm sure I could come up with something equally fun for them to do in other kingdoms. Anyway, do you guys want to see the songs that I was listening to while I was writing this? When I was younger, I kind of wanted their government to be as unproblematic as possible, and so that's how I wrote it. But now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if it's possible to have a perfect government, you know what I mean? And I'm being so dead ass about that, I genuinely do not know. If you guys in the comments know anything about political science and you want to tell me what a perfect government would be like, go ahead. But anyway, sometimes you just have to leave out important details in order to help your citizens sleep at night, you know what I mean? And also so that So, I guess the way that I develop the story is consistent with its overall themes. Let me be clear though, the government still does take very good care of its citizens, especially in comparison to other governments I know. They still have a few issues here and there, but they can't be perfect. They do their best, and I think that their citizens are pretty happy, which must be nice. My laptop is screaming, just ignore that. So I mentioned the overall themes earlier. I think about childhood innocence and adult cynicism all the time, because apparently that's what you do when you reach your 20s, or at least that's what I'm doing. Okay, so this next part of the video was entirely unscripted, and I talked about the topic of childhood innocence and how it relates to my life for 15 minutes. That's gonna be a lot to edit, and I really don't want to do all that when I don't know if I was on to so. I mean, I listened back to it and I was like, I made some really good points, but I think we would get a lot more out of this if I just talked about 2 kids and a killer instead. So we're doing that. So I've only revisited that story once or twice since writing it, so I don't quite remember every little thing that happens in it, but like I said, the kids interrupt a murder trial and allow the criminal to escape, and then they have to go get him. However, in retrospect, I think I could have spent less time on certain nitty-gritty details and more on the theme of childhood innocence, because the kids are far too young to even have a proper comprehension of death. And, yeah, Princess has her moments, but neither of them can even fathom how a person can be driven to murder, you know what I mean? And yet, they're standing in front of someone who's done just that. So I think if I were to get around to rewriting the story, I'd add in a paragraph of the kids having a quiet moment where they sit and talk about what kind of evil person this guy has to be in order to commit a murder in the first place. I think Prince in particular just has a moment where he looks at his sword, and he kind of imagines the thought of using it to kill someone, and it immediately he's grossed out. He doesn't want to think about that. It's too disturbing for him. Because they interact with their citizens whenever they go out, and everyone is always so pleasant. And then, of course,
So they interact with their citizens whenever they go out, and everyone is always so pleasant, so they don't understand where the disconnect happened. And then of course, if I go with the ending that I mentioned earlier, which I probably will because it's just too fun for me to pass it up, then they end up dealing with the problem in a very innocent yet kinda disturbing way.
Anyway, all that was to say, that will be a theme that occasionally pops up. You know, I have to figure out how to incorporate it. But for the most part, I just want to write about shenanigans. I want to draw cool inventions and make up cool creatures, season it with the found family trope, and then garnish it with a tiny bit of gore. Even though I have no confidence in my abilities to write anything other than the slice of life stuff, but fuck it, we are all curb stomping imposter syndrome this year, mark my words. I say that, but it took like 2 months to get this video out solely because I was battling imposter syndrome. My creative writing professor taught me that if you want to be a good writer, the first thing you have to do is take your ideas out of your head and bring them into the tangible world. So here it goes. First off, I have 2 rules, memorize them. Number 1, Prince and Princess cannot kill or permanently injure anyone. This would taint their innocence, and I really can't have that. If they put someone in a dangerous situation, they will either come out unscathed, or, if absolutely necessary, partially scathed. This includes psychological damage. They cannot scar anyone for life. Which I suppose means that if I do end up changing the ending to that fic, then the guy was not at all traumatized from that whole thing. So if he becomes a villain, then his motive is just him being pissed. And, you know, the fact that he was kind of insane to begin with. The other rule for this universe is that the Sarastinians are generally, they're really laid back, and I feel like they're so laid back that it makes them come off as kind of, stupid. I mean, like, they're not incompetent to the point where they're infuriating. You kind of see it when they interact with the kids. It's kind of like the kids are like just taking advantage of these fully grown adults, and these fully grown adults are just letting themselves be taken advantage of by these actual children. And they're just so unbothered about it. They're stupid in kind of a cute way, not in like the stereotypical American way. Like, I wrote this skit this one time where a servant took the kids to, technically it should be a McDonald's knockoff, but I didn't feel like coming up with one on the spot, so I just ended up saying McDonald's, but it's not McDonald's. But anyway, they go up to McDonald's with servant's credit card, and they're ordering 3 Happy Meals. And servant comes up, and he's like, "Why are we ordering 3 Happy Meals?" And the kids are like, "Oh, that third one's for you." And servant's like, "Oh no thanks, I haven't had a Happy Meal in like 10 years. 15 years. Sorry. I haven't had a Happy Meal in like 15 years. And the kids are appalled by this, so they're like, no, we're getting that Happy Meal, trust. And servant protests, and the kids pressure the cashier to swipe the cart and complete the order. And the servant's obviously telling him no. And so the cashier doesn't know who to believe. The literal children, or the guy whose name is on the credit card. But anyway, I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what I mean when I say that the kids take advantage of the townsfolk. Anyway, Prince and Princess are pretty troublesome, of course, but as the story goes along, they transition from causing problems for the town to actually helping them. Like I've mentioned before, that Prince will eventually join the fire departments so that he can put his strength to good use, and Princess, of course, works with the university, and I imagine that she eventually starts to help the undergraduates every so often. I designed this girl Diane some time ago, and if you know anything about chemistry, you know how cute her name is. She is very brilliant, but she clearly needs some guidance in order to succeed, which is fine. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you need someone to hold your hand in order to achieve greatness. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, here are some other premises that I have written down. So, there are these dangerous creatures that live out in the woods and terrorize the woodland creatures and occasionally people. There's 5 of them out in the wild, and Prince wants to slay all 5 of them. If I did this correctly, I'd probably shown you some sketches of them earlier on. They have really, really thick skin, which makes it very hard to get to the vital organs, which means that you need a strategy in order to take them down. They also have a bite that is so lethal that if you get bitten by one, you have no choice but to amputate. Its saliva is highly toxic, and when it reacts with your tissues, the resulting substance just eats away at your cells. It basically turns your own tissues into acid, which is horrifying. And if you don't get rid of the infected area, it will spread throughout the blood and cause problems. However, that's only the case for limbs. If you get bitten in a vital area, then you're dead. And I imagine there have been cases of these things like grabbing people by the midsection and just like chewing on them. I don't even think they eat people. It's like with gum. You just chew it and then you spit it out. They don't actually eat people. Oh, that's horrifying. They're probably herbivores, which is insane. I was like, yeah, dragons don't fit this world, but you know what does? Whatever this thing is. And you know what? It's probably really hard to study those things because, you know, obviously if you get too close, it'll harm you. So, you know, maybe that's why Princess is tagging along. She really wants to get information on these things. Anyway, moving on. Anyway, Princess attempts to bring an extinct species back to life, and it obviously goes very wrong for her. I don't know. I'm gonna keep this one. I haven't watched Jurassic Park, and I probably never will. So any similarities would be entirely coincidental. She like uses its DNA and some of her robot parts and some of her like prosthetics to bring this thing to life, and it is just barely holding on to life, you know what I mean? And she's sure that if she just takes good care of it and keeps like updating its tech, then it'll be fine, but obviously it's not fine. It goes rogue and slashes her arms open. So that's just wonderful. I know for sure that you guys really wanted to see a 5-year-old get her arms ripped open, and so here it is. Prince is trying to teach himself how to wield 2 swords at the same time that a bunch of those giant centipede things that I mentioned earlier invade Sue Jefferson's backyard, because those things have like a 10-year circadian rhythm. Sue Jefferson was probably hosting like a cookout at the time, as he was 10 years ago, and they just showed up and ruined everything, and now they're showing up again and ruining everything, but the kids will take care of it, don't worry. Me and Alexi were talking about this one time. I saw a TikTok of someone being like, I had to call my emergency contact, so their boyfriend's mom, in order to kill like a really huge spider. And it was a huge spider. I don't blame them at all. I don't know why the mom was so calm in that video. But anyway, and then I was reading the comments, and someone was talking about how they called 911's non-emergency line to get some police officers to kill a spider, and it took like 6 cops for them to kill them, and the cops were kind of like freaking out. And I was like, dude, it would be really funny if in Azeristan they don't have an exterminator. Instead, they usually call the cops or the fire department for these kinds of things. But like, maybe there's this one creature that is just so scary. It's probably not even that big, but there's this one creature that's just so scary and gross looking that they just keep calling emergency services until eventually they end up calling the castle, and they call these 2 kindergartners to come and save them from whatever creature is bothering them. And the kids would absolutely do it. They're gonna come in and kill whatever creature is bothering them. So I like to imagine that that's a thing. Obviously 10 years ago, Sue Jefferson didn't really have that option. So that was bad for him. But he has that option now, so it's all good. I think it would be really cool if I could get Prince to sword fight underwater. I want a couple of stories where he does that. I don't have anything specific in mind. I was telling Alexi about him like sword fighting a creature underwater, and at some point he's like, oh, the stupid helmet is getting in the way, and he removes his helmet and just holds his breath to finish fighting off these creatures, and it's like a really tense scene because he has like 40 seconds to kill them all. And then he does that, but then he gets like swept off by like a tide or something, and then Princess isn't even a strong swimmer, but she has to go after him, and luckily she finds him. Obviously I'm not gonna let Princess find her twin brother dead or something. It's all good. But anyway, moving on. Let's get a sillier one out here. The kids have to get their DTaP vaccines, and they obviously don't want to do that, so they run away, and then Percival and Servant have to catch them, and that leads to Tom and Jerry-like shenanigans, except for we don't have cartoon physics in this world, so they have to like narrowly miss all of the traps. We don't have Home Alone logic either, so you know. And don't worry, it won't be anything crazy. It's it's mostly just an excuse to get the two to work towards a common goal. Moving on, Servant and the kids visit his parents, and these 2 spoiled rich kids get to see how their butler grew up. Servant didn't grow up poor, just in a rural area, you know. He had a TV in his room, I imagine, and you know, he could afford to go to prom and homecoming at least once. I know I said that he didn't attend. I know I just said he didn't attend all of those events. He attended a couple of them, but the ones he skipped, he still won. He doesn't know how. Anyway, during that visit, Servant's parents confront him on, conveniently not mentioning the 2 children he has in his custody unofficially. And Servant's parents, they let him know that the kids need him, and he has it in him to be a great parent. He just has to quit doubting himself. And this is not the moment where he gets over his imposter syndrome, but it is when things start to noticeably shift in that direction. This story would be for much, much later in the storyline, because the joke is that the kids should know better by now, but basically, a group of citizens believe that the kids are unfit to rule because they're such troublemakers, even though they haven't caused any problems in a while. Like, this is after the kids have almost completely transitioned from causing problems to helping with problems. So they're not happy about that. But they try to convince these people that, they are worthy of ruling and that they have been doing the work to, be better leaders. But the citizens, they aren't listening. They won't budge. So the solution is to kidnap these people and then put them in mortal danger and then save them from said danger, which then makes them realize that the kids are looking out for their citizens after all. And there's probably a moment where the kids are like, we haven't done anything like that in a while. I don't know how we were doing stuff like that before. They got what they wanted, so. And, the citizens were probably being jerks. I have the drugging episode written in my notes, and I cannot for the life of me remember what the fuck the context for that is. So that's worrying. I've been working on this video for 2 months, and I still can't remember what that could possibly be about. If I know myself, it's probably Servant that gets drugged, so that's just wonderful for him. But I've been talking for over an hour, so I'd like to shut up now. I didn't write an outro for this video, but I recorded it like 3 separate times. And so I made up an outro on my second recording, so I'm just gonna stick that to the end of this video because it's perfectly fine the way it is. So if the audio quality shifts slightly, that's because I'm recording from a different room. And that is wraps on this fucking video. Excellent job, everybody. Great work. If you actually sat down and watched this whole video start to finish, congratulations, you have been promoted to one of my favorite subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention. So, a while back, there was this debate on TikTok about who would win in a fight. 100 gorillas, 100 men or 1 gorilla. And I polled both my YouTube and Instagram audience on what they thought about this. And, interestingly, my YouTube audience overwhelmingly said the man, and my Instagram audience said the gorilla. Now, this tells me a lot of things, but the main thing that it tells me is that you guys aren't following me on Instagram! Go follow me! Go follow Perlana and Lexi because they post way more often than I do. Also, please do not ask if you can draw your OCs with my OCs. The answer is yes. Do it. You feel free, okay? Just don't draw anything weird or strange. You are going to freak me out. I get freaked out easily. Alright? Cool. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.